Right, time to speak to the opposition, and the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whately is with me now. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
So we're expecting a big speech from your leader today. Give us a taster. What's going to be the headline from it?
Yeah, so Kemi Badenoch is going to be talking about how we want to see savings made from the welfare budget and setting out our approach to doing that. The situation that we face as a country is that we cannot afford the growth in the welfare bill. Sickness benefits costs are going up to around 100 billion by the end of this decade, 3,000 people a day going on to sickness benefits. And it's clear from what we've seen with the Labour government over the last couple of weeks, they cannot make savings. There's been an absolute chaos, and what was meant to be a savings bill ended up being a spending bill that they voted through last night. And this is a very serious situation for us as a country, and don't just take my word for it. The OBR literally this week has said that the UK is in a very vulnerable financial position because of Labour's inability to make savings for welfare. So that's what Kemi's going to be setting out later today.
Nearly half of the welfare budget, 46%, and some 5% of GDP goes on the state pension. Should that be means-tested in the same way that the winter fuels payment now is?
So I don't see the state pension as a benefit in that sense. So pensions are different, but what we're particularly talking about here is a growth in working age benefits, because that's something which is obviously something we can't afford. And part of the context for this is that around 1 in 4 people now say that they consider themselves disabled. We can't have a country which, if that means you consider yourself disabled, you believe that you should be receiving benefits. So clearly we just can't afford that. So that's something that has to be tackled. And as I said, that's what Kemi's going to be talking about this afternoon, how we know that there are some people who shouldn't be getting benefits in future, how the assessment process needs to be improved to make sure that the right people, look, obviously some people with disabilities do need help. We recognise that, you need that safety net, but there are others who would be much better off in work, but who are currently not.
And if it's able to successfully identify those deserving versus those not, then obviously great, that would be a simple fix. Just of the welfare bill, it is very expensive, the state pension, and maybe it's legitimate, maybe it should even be higher. But isn't a disabled person more deserving of state funds than a millionaire pensioner? Again, I just come back to this point about the state pension going to absolutely everyone. Should it be means-tested?
Look, so we in government, we clearly brought in the triple lock because we were concerned about actually a serious problem of pensioner poverty and pensioners on very low incomes. And that has supported and helped pensioners get out of that situation. Many, though, of course, not all. We know many pensioners still are on low incomes. But what Kemi's talking about this afternoon is specifically the problem we have of people of working age who are not working. And actually, with a significant number of people who are retired and not receiving pensions these days, we need those who can work to be working. That's really, really important. And we can't have so many people out of work and receiving benefits. And I will say, we are the only party that's talking about this. So Labour has just voted for more spending on welfare. Reform is calling for more spending on welfare. They said they'd lift the 2-child benefit cap, and they voted for spending the last couple of weeks. We're the only ones who say you need fiscal discipline. We've got to live within our means.
I'll come to that more broad point in a second, but, regardless of what Kemi Badenoch's due to say or not, you're the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary. So just finally, I mean, the state pension, should it be means-tested?
So I'm not going to go down that route. And we have said, and Kemi said, that we are going to spend our time in opposition.
You're not going to go down the route as in you're not going to answer the question, or you don't want to make it means-tested?
Well, we haven't said that we're clearly in support of... We have not said we're in support of means-testing the state pension. And what we have said on pensions is to say we brought in the triple lock. We were committed to that at the last election. And between now and the next election, we'll, of course, be working on all the things that we put in our manifesto for the next election. And we'll see then what financial position that the country is in. Mm-hmm. It's not looking good at the moment, and we really want, and actually, one reason for Kemi not making the speech today is we need the government to take action between now and the next election on the growth of the welfare bill. We're trying to help them, set out for them ways that they could be making savings. This is so important.
Mm-hmm. I guess, coming back to the broad point, and you're saying that both Labour and Reform, in your framing of it, don't focus on fiscal discipline. I guess one's got to look at either it's the triple lock, which was pretty expensive over 14 years, whether it was warranted or not, or during COVID or at other times. I mean, is it fair to say the last 5 years, the last Parliament, at least, of Conservative government also didn't really focus on fiscal discipline. I mean, Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, they spent an awful lot. The one person that really focused on fiscal discipline was a short-lived premiership, perhaps you could argue, who wanted to cut spending, albeit, cut taxes as well, was Liz Truss.
Well, if you look at our time in government, time of Conservative Prime Ministers, from 2010 until the pandemic, we clearly were focusing on fiscal discipline, and we brought the deficit down every year. During that period, we brought unemployment down.
In absolute terms, not in percentage of GDP.
We got people off benefits and into work, and brought the benefits bill down. And that was hard to say. I mean, if you remember back in that period under George Osborne and David Cameron, we had to make hard decisions, but we did that to get the finances back in a better position, which did mean that we were able to support the country through the pandemic. And that's not to be underestimated, the cost to the country of the worst pandemic in over a century. And yes, we did spend money, but that was to keep businesses going, keep people's livelihoods going, and to help us recover afterwards. And actually, we did see a strong recovery for the UK as we came out of the pandemic, particularly compared to many other countries.
Just want to touch on another defection, high-profile defection, former chairman Jake Berry, starting to get a bit nervous within the party?
Well, actually, I mean, what you saw is just this week, Reform have lost one of their 5 MPs. They're down to 4 MPs in Parliament again, so they can't hold on to their MPs. I mean, clearly, former MP Jake Berry, I wish him well with a different party. Reform is a very different party from us as Conservatives. As we've been talking about, we believe in fiscal discipline and living within our means. Reform doesn't. Reform believes in spending more, and I think inevitably taxing more. And Jake's views perhaps have changed during his time. People's views do change during their lifetime. So I say, I wish him well in a different party.
He's obviously a very close ally and friend of Boris Johnson. Would you be worried if Boris Johnson joined Reform?
Look, I'm focusing on what we need to do as the Conservative Party, which is hold this government to account and offer people a serious and better alternative come the next election. That is what I see as my job as the Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you so much for joining us, Helen Whately. Good to see you this morning.